Зачекаємо, зачекаємо
Welcome,
ще одну
everyone.
хвилину,
Let us
поїдемо
wait one more
починати,
minute before we
адже маємо
start.
сьогодні насичену
Today we have
програму.
a very interesting
Наш захід
program,
буде на двох
and
мовах:
our
англійською та
event today
українською,
is going to
з
be
синхронним перекладом.
conducted in two
Внизу на
languages,
панелі
in English and
сторінки
Ukrainian.
Zoom
And if you
бачите
need the
іконку
translation,
глобуса,
you can
натиснувши
find the
яку
globe
можете
icon
обрати
on your
мову,
screen
якою ви
below, and
хочете
choose
слухати
the
лекцію.
language which
І
you're going
також
to be comfortable
наша
with
лекція буде
during this lecture.
записана і згодом
So
буде
our
викладена
lecture
на
is going
каналі
to be
розквіту
recorded,
в YouTube.
and we will upload it on our channel,
Мене
Roscoe
звати
channel.
Наталя Козуб,
My
я
name is
директорка
Natalia Kozub,
відповідальна
and I'm an
коаліції Розквіт.
architect and a
Я сьогодні
researcher for
буду
Roscoe Coalition for
модераторкою
Ukraine.
нашої
Today I am
події
moderating
разом з
our
Лілет Бредес, яка
lecture
є нашою
together with
проєктною
Lilith
менеджеркою.
Bradels, who is our project
Зараз
manager.
передам слово
So,
Лілет
and I'm giving
для
the floor to Lilith so
вступного слова
that she could
та
make the
оголошувальної промови. Розказати про
introduction of our
контекст нашої
speakers and
публічної роботи.
say a few words about the context of our lecture.
Thank you so much for this introduction, Natasha. Yes, I'm very happy to have this. Actually, we have been both preparing it for quite some time, thinking it's a very relevant topic for Ukraine at the moment, to find alternatives. So when big reconstruction efforts are starting, people are still thinking like what materials to use, what kind of methods are being viable, and this is the time actually to investigate that, to experiment with it, to make pilots, to really start working. And we have some people here tonight who are actually doing that, who are or constructing already quite large buildings, or who are being, I think all of them are the ambassadors of building with timber or wood. So I would love to leave it at that. We have a bilingual evening, as Natasha already explained. I will say it again for the people who came a little later. You can choose your language of preference in a small globe at the bottom of the screen, and choose your preferred language in English or Ukrainian to listen to. After this, the lectures will be recorded and you can see them on YouTube. It's the YouTube channel of Roskvit, where you see also all the other lectures of the series. I give the floor back to you for the introduction of the speakers. Natasha, please.
Дуже дякую, Лілет, за
Thank you
вступ.
very much,
Перед тим,
Lilith.
як представити лекцію,
And
хочу
before we introduce our lecturers,
сказати, що наша
I
лекція
would like to
сьогодні
say
буде
that
тривати
today's lecture is
півгодини.
going to
Кожен
last for
лектор
1 hour
буде
and a
мати
half,
15
and
до
each
20
lecturer
хвилин на
will have
презентацію. Після цього
15,
у
well,
нас
up to 20
має
minutes for
залишитись,
their
сподіваємось,
presentations,
близько
and
20
then
хвилин
we
на
hope to
обговорення.
have
Це дуже
around half an
важлива
hour
дискусія,
for their
тому
discussion.
залишайтесь до
It is very
кінця.
important
Нам дуже важливо почути від вас
for you to
зворотній
stay
зв'язок
till the
з
end. We would like to hear your
питаннями.
feedback and to discuss the
Отже, про
questions
що
that you
будемо
might have.
говорити сьогодні?
So, what
Будемо
we are
говорити
talking
про
today
сучасні
about,
будівельні
we will
матеріали з
be talking
деревини,
about
які
modern construction
переваги та
materials made of
обмеження
wood,
деревина має
the
використовувати у
disadvantages
порівнянні
and
з
advantages
сучасними
of timber
бетоном і
in
сталлю.
comparison with the traditional
Торкнемось
concrete and
законодавчої
steel.
бази
We will
дерев'яного будівництва
discuss
як в Нідерландах, так і в
normative
Україні.
acts
Розглянемо
concerning timber construction both in the
питання
Netherlands
сталого
and in
лісового
Ukraine. We
господарства
will
і,
be
звісно,
discussing
подивимось на прекрасні та
sustainable
надихаючі
forestry,
приклади дерев'яних
and
будівель
we will
в
see
Нідерландах і
very
в Україні.
inspiring examples of timber construction
Тепер
both in
хочу
Ukraine and in the Netherlands.
представити наших
So,
спікерів.
I'm really
Буду
looking forward
представляти в цьому
to
порядку, в
introducing
якому
my
вони
speakers
будуть
today, and I'm
робити
introducing
свої
them in the
презентації.
order of their presentations.
Першою
Uh,
надамо
the
слово
first person to
to get the floor will be Janne Vermeulen from the Netherlands. She is the director for architecture and co-founder of Team V Architecture. In 2016, Ms. Vermeulen started to work on the Hout building, which was a breakthrough. And since the beginning of the project, the Bureau has already implemented a few timber architecture projects, and also they have become experts in this area. They're going, and Diana is going to share her experience. Our next lecturer is Andriy Bidakov, doctor of architecture, a person who designed a few normative acts for timber construction. Andriy also has his own architectural bureau and is a very successful practitioner of architecture in Ukraine. And our last speaker today is Yevhen Han, who is a researcher, a PhD and COC and integrity manager of FSC Ukraine, who is regulating the process of certification of timber constructions, who is monitoring the COC of timber. And now I have the pleasure to give the floor to Janne Vermeulen. Please, you have the floor. Janne, we cannot hear you. Please switch on your mic.
So now you can hear me, hopefully. Does that work? And you can see a screen, hopefully, too.
Yes.
I was asked today, and I'm honored to be here, not because I'm an expert at what your country is about to do, but because we have a few, maybe hopefully inspiring examples of building in timber here in the Netherlands. So I'll run you through 3 projects, and I'm happy to answer questions afterwards, as was said. Our office does many sorts of projects, mostly in the Netherlands. At the moment, we do one project in Belgium, and we work on train stations and mobility. We work on refurbishing existing buildings often, and we work on sustainable new build projects, both in the residential, in the office market, and various cultural projects. And that diversity we really like, and also helps us to transfer knowledge from one kind of project to another. It's an office of about 55 people in the Netherlands, so I'm here representing all of them. And in 2016, as was said, we started working on a timber tower. And one of the interesting things that we think about is important to realize when we're talking about sustainable buildings is that really the population growth worldwide is going to happen within cities, not so much on the outskirts, but really in dense inner cities. And traditionally, these cities were always made, this is London where I studied, were always made out of steel, concrete, and glass. When looking at the carbon emissions of the building industry, buildings are a large part of that construction industry. But from the construction industry, the superstructure of buildings takes up by far the largest part of the carbon footprint of this construction. So for us, it felt quite natural to, when looking at sustainability, to look at that superstructure, first of all. And we started looking at timber buildings at a time that was not so often done yet. Specifically not in the Netherlands, but actually even worldwide, there were only a few large, tall, big buildings made with timber. But timber has a number of great advantages. Of course, the timber stores carbon while it's growing, and the carbon remains stored in the timber as long as it's not burned or rotting or taken out. It's a circular material, of course. It's flexible, it's beautiful, we think. It's comfortable, it's lightweight. It allows for faster construction, so that's good. And it allows for customization because it's not coming out of a mold, but it can be computer aided, sewn or phrased. That way you can really make each component of a building to a custom size or to a custom form. That storage of timber is important in the whole story. So before you actually construct a building, the timber stores the carbon. A building then, of course, by using energy and by using all sorts of things, starts to emit carbon again. But because you start from a kind of negative impact, that is always helpful in the long run of the whole lifespan of a building. It was nice also because timber is really circular in its production. We also like from the mass timber that we were going to use for Hout, we like the fact that it's not the hard inner core of trees that's used for CLT or for mass timber, but it's actually the outer parts. Whereas the inner parts are used for furniture, is actually the kind of leftover area of the tree trunk that's used for this mass timber that you see here. And when we started in 2016, we went to see a factory straight away, and you see how lightweight the pulleys are to lift up an entire wall panel. That really shows that building in timber can be done with lighter equipment and with less energy production or energy consumption, and therefore a smaller footprint on site as well. Since we've started in the Netherlands, I thought I'd give you a quick insight into what's happening in timber building within the Netherlands. So the main cities in the metropolitan region have committed to a Green Deal of timber building. And they've said at least 20% of our housing production. This includes governments, local governments, but also construction companies, developers, architects. They've all committed to attempting to get at least 20% of the entire housing production in timber. We haven't been able to calculate yet whether that's going to happen this year. One of the interesting things about the Netherlands is that we have a code structure, and I think in the later part of this evening we will be talking about that a bit. That is performance-based. So in the Netherlands, it's relatively easy if you compare it to, for instance, Germany or North America, to use our building codes to innovate, because we can engineer to, for instance, structural standards, and it's not given that we can only build, for instance, 6 stories in timber. So we can build as much as we can, as long as we prove with calculations, conform certain norms, of course, that the buildings will stay up and are, for instance, fireproof. What we also notice is that there's quite a few timber networks in the Netherlands. So these are various networks of all sorts of companies and people that work together to really share knowledge, to really innovate, and to push the timber building forward. This is Amsterdam, the city I'm calling in from, and this is a map in 2022 of the timber projects that were on the drawing board or on site or built. So that is to show that it's getting not quite into a main revolution maybe, but it's really taking a leap. Of course, again, Evgeny will talk about this much more, but this is a bit about the fact that there's still a lot of timber supply within Europe and outside it. You can really, the calculations at the moment is that there's an excess of forest, production forest, so we can still continue to build a lot in timber. So all that kind of helps to get from a construction industry that's mainly focusing on concrete and steel towards one that is also showing using timber. And what, as an architect, I really like is that you put these little saplings in the ground, forests grow, if you harvest those sustainably and carefully, then you can regrow saplings, and it's that fully circular material. As an office, for the first time, we worked with large-scale laminated timber construction, timber beams in this case, on the Rotterdam Central train station, also using a lot of timber cladding. And at the moment, we are working on have delivered various projects. And I'm going to be talking of those today briefly. Hout, the first tall timber tower in the Netherlands, is located in this area just outside the center of Amsterdam on the river Amstel. And it started at a time that these were the 5 other large-scale timber buildings worldwide. We did a render in a tendering process, in a competition process, and in the end it turned out like this. So this is it realized in 2021. Hout contains 2,800 cubic meters of wood that have taken about 2 hours to grow in the it takes 2 hours to grow this much timber in the production forests of Austria. And it's alongside a train track, a road, and a underground dam for the water. So it's tricky ground conditions that meant that our building was really challenging to get stably founded in the ground. Still, we really work towards a hybrid construction. So it's actually a hybrid building with steel, concrete, and a lot of timber. And we compared 2 ways of building, one with a main timber structure using steel strips to create integral stability walls, shear walls, and the other one using a concrete core with 2 fins of walls and then everything else surrounding it in mostly timber with a bit of steel. In the end, the version on the right was faster to build, technically less challenging, but most of all had less carbon footprint, had a smaller carbon footprint. So this hybrid option with concrete and timber was what we went for. And here you see how that works in detail. So the floors are hybrid floors with 16 centimeters of CLT and a thinner concrete layer on top that's structural. And the noses on these floor elements also mean that the sound doesn't travel between the apartment below and the apartment above. These integral floor elements were made in the factory, and the concrete and the timber are joined together with a kind of Japanese joint and various kind of screws that were put in to create a structurally integral element that then also helps for vibrations and noise. And here you see that again. Here on the right, you see how they produce these elements in the factory. We worked with Arup also on fire safety, and the building has a compartmentalization, of course. The concrete core helps for that. In general, the building structure is a 90-minute fire as a constructive fire rating of 90 minutes, and the sprinkler installation helps to get it to 120 minutes, which we need for a 70-meter tall tower. So here you see the concrete core going up, around it the timber elements of the floors and walls that are lifted up by the crane, then installed in place, first the walls with a kind of steel fins to then connect the floor plates to, and here you see it on site. With the various openings that we made for the apartment layouts. And then within 6 working days, 1 whole floor was installed, both structurally, but also with a prefab facade that already had the window frames and the glass in it. So the facade was really important to get it fast onto the structure to make sure it was watertight. Then the building is nearly all what we call an open building. So all the MEP, which in the Netherlands generally is cast into the concrete and therefore not easy to change, is here open and mounted on the timber so that MEP can be changed over time. Apart from the only thing that is not like that is the underfloor heating and cooling. And here you see the scaffolding going back down on the facade. This is a high-end apartment tower. It was one of the last apartment towers that were for the free market only. So all the apartments have been for sale, have been sold in the meantime. And we wanted to maximize the views of this beautiful location. So we made a kind of comb structure out of timber and concrete. And that is the main structure of the building, so that we could keep the facade all transparent. Here you see that also in the plans. And it also allowed for very large balconies and openings. And here you see that in the facade. We put lots of PV panels in the facade, in total about 850 square meters. That is to provide energy use for the apartments. So the energy is actually used for the apartments themselves. And we integrated that into the facade in a way that we maximized with a computer model all the revenue that we could get out, even though there's balconies and there's overhangs. But also so that you didn't see them so much. And it's in the end, the facade does look really great. We used a super thin concrete for the roof, for the floor edges. And of course, the detailing of these timber buildings for the first time was really quite tricky to do well and to make sure that it all complied. Here you see again the hybrid floors. We worked with some of the residents to provide layouts for each type of apartments. There's a whole variety in this building, from very small to very large. And one of the things that we managed to do, because also due to the sprinkler installation, we managed to make sure that the ceilings could be exposed, which of course saved the cost of cladding, but also made sure that you can actually see some of that timber. The timber then also helps for the comfort in the apartment, because it helps with the sound, the acoustics, and the level of humidity in the air. So here you see the fire escape, the elevator lobby, and the corridors, and this is the building. It got a BREEAM Outstanding certificate, so that's one of the main sustainability scores, not due to only the timber, but many other measures that we took in the building. So here you see that BREEAM score, which and it won the BREEAM prize. And we kind of gave a comparison of how much carbon is kind of permanently stored in the building. It was a building for us that really took a flight. It was published internationally at the time. And we're really happy that we managed to realize it, because during construction, of course, or just before construction, that was really quite tight. I'll flick through a few other projects very quickly, because this is a project where we topped up in timber on an existing university building by making a hole in the middle, putting a timber structure on top, lightweight, and that helped because the main structure of the existing building could then hold its extra weight, and it gave us a kind of atrium space on an existing building. We find that topping up in timber and adding to existing buildings in timber is also really worthwhile thinking about. And then our last, second to last, is an office building where we did a comparison between concrete, hybrid, and timber. Also in terms of the amount of carbon stored, and also in terms of cost. So the main cost, the traditional cost, the cost, extra cost for hybrid, and the cost for full timber. And that's one of the still issues that in the Netherlands we find is still difficult for large-scale buildings to get timber to kind of earn itself back. But here the construction in time in timber was reduced by 5 or 6 months, and that really made a difference. And I think that's also one of the big arguments to build in timber, is that you really can build fast. Again, it's a hybrid, so we use some steel, much concrete, and a lot of mass timber. In offices, we find that the regulations, meeting the regulations for fire and acoustics, are a bit easier. Again, we added a lot of sustainability measures. Here you see again a section with the comfort measures. And this is the building. It's 45,000 square meters in hybrid structure for an office building. And then one last one is one that we have currently on the drawing board, which is about to start construction later this year. It's affordable housing in timber. Again, in a hybrid form, it's about 58 meters high, so it's less tall than the Hout building. But what we like about this is that we really work to a much more affordable structure in timber. So we made a square and simple building. We put a kind of lightweight frame around it to hold up balconies and loggias that we needed for sound reduction. And again, we searched for a hybrid structure with concrete in the middle, steel on the outside, and in this case, box elements, timber box elements for the flooring. A super efficient layout, and again, the same fire with a 90-minute rating on the timber structure, but a sprinkler installation to get it to 120, and timber cladding on the outside. So we also use a bio-based material for the cladding of the building. And that's it for me. I'll stop sharing.
Thanks. What we would love to hear actually 1 hour more of this, but then we have to split the series in three. And I'm also looking forward to the discussions afterwards and the questions. You've got a lot of loves, hearts, and applause. So a lot of reactions. Thank you very much, and let's immediately go on with our next speaker, and then we get back for questions later. Please, everybody, put the questions in the Q&A, and then we'll get back to that later. You can use the chat if you want to chat. So please, André.
Добрий день. Я вітаю всіх
Good evening.
присутніх.
I am honored to be here today at our today's lecture, and because today we are talking about timber as a construction material, and we have some experience, 15 years of experience in timber design and timber construction. I would like to share it with you. And when we talk about Ukraine in terms of timber construction, the question is, how can we build of timber? Do we have any good practices? Do we have any objective advantages timber has over other materials on the Ukrainian market? Or because you need to discuss it with the client, and you start talking about its ecology, it's about low carbon footprint, and the client would say, okay, let's really talk about real advantages, you know. And when we discuss the Ukrainian projects, which are now under construction, under design, we cannot, like our Dutch colleagues, we don't have any high-rise timber constructions to show, but we are going to do it in the future, we hope. But we have some objects, including the Lviv workshop, prosthetics workshop, and I would like to analyze what we have in my presentation using this building as an example. So the overall amount of timber we used, it's not over 3,000 cubic meters. It's much less, but the area, the overall area of the building is 1,000 square meters. And I absolutely support the previous lecturer in the fact that it is very quick to build of timber. Yes, metal structures are also rather quick, but we use timber to complete this building in 4-5 weeks, and it was in December and in January. in Ukraine. So it was very resultative, and it set a very good example for all the organizations who were monitoring our project, and they were pleasantly surprised because the design work took 4 weeks. These materials were manufactured in Ukraine because Ukraine has uh, a flagman manufacturer of timber construction materials, which allow us to provide for quite spacey constructions. So you can see the final result of our work on the slide below. And those who reside now in Lviv, please visit. We will be really glad to greet you here. Because architects often ask us whether we can see it, where, and yeah, you're welcome. So once again, the advantages include high-speed construction and use of prefab materials, because the elements, the modular elements are manufactured on an assembly line, and this assembly line recognizes 3D models. Drawings are supplementary, and they provide for swift assembly. The longest elements were 18 meters long, and this length allows us to transport these materials along the highways in Ukraine. And these elements are used for high-speed assembly, and it was very successful. So here you can see a very long corridor on slide, and the constructive elements coming to us from the manufacturing works are part of the interior design. So the timber constructions today are not just providing for swift construction works, but also they need no finish. So when we're using concrete or brick, we need to plaster it later, and this means additional risks, additional labor force, additional materials, and it means more responsibility. And unfortunately, today it is quite a challenge. So it is much more convenient to have one construction supplier, a construction performer who will be responsible for everything. And also, timber is maybe not the cheapest material in Ukrainian market, but the comparison allows us to say that because we do not need to finish it with anything else, this high price will be compensated in comparison with metal structures and concrete. Here on this slide, you can see the combination of glulam panels, CLT panels and glulam beams. So today we have CLT panels in more demand because the global trend is to build with large spanning length modules, and then CLT panels are used as flooring, for instance, if the designer decides to. But the building in Lviv has spans of 8 meters, and we decided to combine glulam and CLT panels, which allowed us to reduce the overall cost of the construction works. And as of today, the key driver for timber construction is its price per square meter. So this kind of combination of glulam and CLT panels makes us more competitive in comparison with traditional concrete construction. And we have clients who are our fans, supporters, and they understand the advantages of timber construction very well. And our supporters include quite a range of architectural offices. Their heads are convinced that we must integrate timber constructions in contemporary Ukrainian architecture, but they are also asking us about like disadvantages and hindrances. So actually, I think we need to raise awareness about the fire safety of silty panels and glulam. And this is a classical picture. Here you see the steel beams, which after being heated look like spaghetti. And as you see, they are hanging over a wooden beam. When we are talking about fire safety for people, we must be honest. For us, human life is the top value, so we must provide for as much time as we can for people to evacuate from the building. When we talk about reinforced concrete, the problem is heating. 600, 700 degrees above zero, and the structure collapses. We must evacuate people before this temperature is reached. Timber is natural material. It is charred, and the charring intensity can be calculated over time. So it will require you will need like a couple of hours, several hours for the timber structure to collapse due to the fire. So, as I said, we do not need any plastering, and in timber construction, the fire safety is provided for by the width of cross section in beams. Sometimes we can cover it with paperboard panels if this is the task. And I would like to reiterate, timber is not is absolutely fire secure, fire safe, and we need to amend the existing documents, existing regulations in construction, so that, like our European colleagues, we could increase the amount of the number of architectural objects made of timber. And here I would like to use some examples from my architectural bureau. We are designing the timber constructions. Presently, we have designed a range of buildings which are going to be implemented, constructed this year and next year, hopefully. And presently we see that this year we have more than 1,000 square meters designed, and they are going to be built. So there is demand for timber construction, and we are also starting to get some requests from the ministries, really, and state structures. So, in our western part of Ukraine, the construction activity is very high, in Kiev too, and very often we get requests for timber structures, timber buildings. And sometimes we're not even asked how it is going to be done. High-rise constructions made of timber are possible today, and our design bureau is ready to design them. And we have a manufacturer who is able to provide sufficient quality, and the only hindrance really that we have is the current regulations, efficient regulations for fire safety. Here I illustrated as a fire-breathing dragon, and we need to resolve this issue. Also, we need to raise awareness that timber structures are, once again, fire safe. And now we are looking for ways to, if not to amend the existing regulations, then to find a way around them. Here I have put on this boulder several names of our regulatory documents, which, are quite contradictory. And sometimes the normative framework of Ukraine regulates not only specific elements of construction, etc., but we also have normatives for the design of airports, hospitals, etc. And such regulations do not specify the materials. So we need to really, to sum it up, to review the existing regulatory framework and to use our materials in an informed way, because to add here, timber is a natural material which can be recycled. Presently, the projects which are going to be implemented already have specific trajectories. So the first trajectory, let's say, clearly is the design phase, then expertise, and then designing specific documents which substantiate the suggested solutions, because they contradict maybe today's normatives, and we are experimenting here. We must prove with calculations that it is not going to collapse. It is going to stand and be reliable, viable. So then we approve our project, and our client also says, if I get the SS1 impact, then the client would ask, can I make it of timber? Yeah. Then we will use the constraints for this class of buildings, and we build it of timber. And the third way here, it's that is bridging the gap, is to list the building as a temporary one. And if the building is temporary, then the regulations are not that rigid in terms of fire safety, etc. I don't know what happens after the expiry of the temporary status of the building, but the first steps we take following this third route show that there is a problem, but at the same time there is a wish expressed by the developers to build of timber, to use timber for structural elements of the building. And another object, which is my pride and joy, this is a gas station in the Zhytomyr highway. And you understand that the fire safety issue is here illustrated like that. So we have built a gas station out of timber, and this is an implemented project. I don't know which exactly route was followed out of the three I described to build it, but this is a kind of an expo hall which has a lot of traffic, and it promotes timber construction. And every time I get the question, were you the designers? But I say no, but I love the project. And then I'm asked, like, this is the structure that can be affected by precipitation. This is a gas station. And then you know, I start getting questions. Why are we not using timber for, you know, for other projects? Because there are so many good practices in the internet. And so our clients are starting to find ways to build the kindergartens, schools out of timber. So the very existence of this timber-made gas station is very important, and it shows that there is if there's a will, there's a way, and all we have to do is, you know, to tweak our legislature to make the ways to build of timber legal, so that architectural teams will be able to practice timber construction. And this is my last slide, and I actually chose it as the last one because timber is actually very long-lasting. Concrete lasts 150 years, 200 years, and this slide shows you five-story parking, and it is made of timber. All the constructive issues can be resolved through selecting the specific necessary cross-sections and dimensions of the wooden elements. And this project shows how durable, how resilient timber can be, and how long-lasting. And this we must prove it, we must illustrate it, and I think this parking project answers quite a lot of questions, and we must it illustrates that not only some public buildings can be built of timber. We can use timber to build very functional buildings like this one. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. I promised the audience ambassadors for wood. Well, we have them. You are the second one. Really, really great. These stories and yeah, I would say proof of how fantastic this material is. The gas station is amazing. It also looks great. Okay, our last ambassador is Yevgeny Khan. We're kind of zooming out from the building to the larger regulations and certifications. A very important aspect, of course, if we need to convince people, and that is what needs to be done. So, Yevgeny, please, the floor is yours.
Дякую.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the previous lecturers. It was very inspiring to listen to you. Now the colleagues are going to show my slides, and really, I'm working in the National University of Bioresources, and I'm also working as a manager in FSC Ukraine. This is the organization taking care of woods all over the world, and we are working with questions, with issues of timber construction. Next slide, please. Right. So to start with, I would like to say that FSC has been working for 30 years, and the initiative to establish such an organization came from a number of challenges, like excessive timber harvesting, deforestation, and one major challenge which is faced by all of the world is climate change. And forests are the ecosystem which can counteract the climate change which is so threatening. Today we have talked about carbon footprint and timber can contain it both by live trees and by timber products. When we're talking about certified forests, it's just part of the overall forest of the world. As you see, the figures are given on slides. Our organization is member-based, so everyone willing to join us is welcome, and all our members take part in forming the goals, setting the goals, and forming the strategies of FSC all over the world. So the certificate owners are communicating with their clients and with the partners. So I think that everyone here has seen the logo I'm showing you on slide. You can see it on all sorts of timber products, and the companies who are positioning themselves as certified users are many in Ukraine. In Ukraine, we have been working for 20 years, and during this time, we have been trying to transform the approach to forestry and to timber products manufacturing. To find the best possible solutions, we must remember that we have issues which need partnership, which require people to get together, and this includes deforestation and forest degradation. As I said, our organization is tackling this problem for 30 years. We are also witnessing efforts of the European Union who are promoting the new plan for counteracting deforestation and promoting certified timber products. We are also tackling the problem of climate change, as I said, deforestation, loss of biodiversity, and also there are places in the world in which we have indigenous peoples who rely on forests in terms of their existence. And when we're talking about FSC, next slide, please. Our organization works in social, environmental, and economic dimensions, and all these dimensions are equal, and so our international members can work in various chambers, as we call them. We have 3 chambers. At the same time, our organization works with the 3 chambers comprehensively. And so, how does our system work? Why are we talking about FSC certification today? First of all, when we think of timber, timber is grown in forests. And then we have the chain of custody, when timber can be transformed into certain products and then reach the final consumer. And so the FSC certification system says that at each of these stages, we must adhere to specific requirements, which are listed as standards, according to the sphere of manufacturing. In terms of forests, these are 10 key principles which include various criteria, and they include not just providing for biodiversity, but also participation of local communities and other social issues. So we have we are working very closely with manufacturers, with processing companies, and today Mr. Bidakov mentioned in particular one manufacturing company in Ukraine, the result, and they are very responsible and try to show how they follow our standards. Next slide. So when we are talking about forest resources of Ukraine, the first thing is to think where we have them, how much timber do we have, how many forests, and what is the growth, the annual growth. So here you can see some basic information on slide what we have in Ukraine. First of all, we need to start with the fact that the total area of forests is 10.4 million hectares, which is approximately 15.9% of the whole area of Ukraine. During the last 50 years, our forest ratio increased 105 times, and the growing stock has increased 2.5 times. And so it is around 2.3 billion cubic meters. And annually, we have this growth of 35 million cubic meters. Quite recently, we also took the first steps to create the inventory of national forests with the help of satellites, screening, and this data was confirmed. I can say that around 18.6% of the total area of Ukraine is covered with forests, and the overall growing stock is around 2.8 billion cubic meters. Next slide, please. Next step, logically, is to consider how much timber is harvested, and can we do it? Are there any risks? What are the constraints? Here I need to start with the fact that yes, there must be constraints, limits imposed upon both on harvesting and growing timber. When we are talking about the approach, which includes both ecological and economic factors, we must understand that not all ecosystems can be used for forestry. Steppe cannot, for instance. When we are talking about degraded agricultural lands, we must be very cautious, but depending upon the context, we can use such degraded lands both for forest growing and for recreating the initial ecological systems. As you see, 1/10 of Ukraine is also covered with wood, definitely. And in Ukraine in 2024, we harvested around 15 million cubic meters, out of which around 7 million cubic meters was harvested as industrial wood for industrial purposes, furniture or other goods, and around 7.8 million cubic meters was harvested for fuel wood, including the fuel wood sold to the population or used for manufacturing in various kinds of industries. So all in all, you can see Ukraine has forests. We have timber. Next slide. And we have standards which show that we can be even more cautious in terms of using ecosystems and maintaining them. And one of the ways is FSC certification. Ukraine today has around 44% of certified forests, FSC certified forests, in the most forested regions, as you see on slide. And also FSC is the road towards long-term changes. We have, of course, specific approaches which are not understood in European countries, but FSC tries to exert positive influence and to foster the transition, to promote the transition from the, let's say, traditional classical approaches towards aligning our approaches with the approaches which are European and which are aligned with European strategies in forestry. Next slide. So let us now talk about timber construction. To add to the things my colleagues have already said, I would like to say that carbon can be operational or bound. Operational carbon is released when we are heating the premises, when we are building, while the embodied carbon is contained inside timber, bound inside timber, or which is absorbed as a result of manufacturing. If we compare the carbon footprint in the context of energy production, we understand that when we build of wood, we reduce our energy costs and we leave a smaller carbon footprint. FSC for a long time has been promoting the circulatory economy principle and also the cascade principle. Last year, we were also conducting a webinar on timber construction. One of the issues we explored was the setting priorities in terms of timber construction. When we are talking about cascade principle, it means that how much time we can contain this carbon, and construction, furniture manufacturing have a range of advantages in comparison with energy production. This slideshow has this presentation has links which can be used for those who would like by those who would like to explore this issue in more detail. So also FSC certification includes a specific branch of certifying projects when architects, developers undertake additional requirements to use a rating system for labeling their products which they use in construction, and FSC is one of the options. When we are talking about certification of the projects, this is an approach which means that when we use timber in construction, we pay attention where and how the timber was harvested. And so the whole COC participant adheres to the undertaking requirements to use the ecologically safe timber. So There are many good practices in the world of the application of FSC principles. Here you see one Formula Grand Prix paddocks in Canada. This is an example of a construction which is built of 100% FSC certified timber. Next, please. Another interesting case is the Impulso Verde building, which was used with FSC certified products in Spain. And here the focus was on counteracting the climate change by reducing the carbon footprint. Next slide. This slide shows a very interesting case of an open library built of timber, and it has a very particular ventilation system. You can Google it, and you will see the panorama there. This project was implemented around 5 years ago. Next slide, please. And this slide shows more projects built of FSC certified timber in Canada. And on your right, you see the Cree Cultural Institute. Next, please. Another interesting example is the first FSC certified project in Germany, Boogie 52. As far as I know, the implementation process spanned over several years because the problem was the supply of the materials and their FSC certification, actually. Next slide. And a very interesting case is the London 2012 Olympics, when besides using FSC certified timber, all the printed materials were also manufactured of FSC certified timber. And also, we have a project that was implemented around 10 years ago. This is Rio 2016 Summer Olympics structures. Yeah, and another slide. Thank you. Here you can see the benefits of partnership for Rio Committee, and these included ensuring responsible origin of products. Another very important aspect was sustainability and the ability to measure the impact on the environment and have added value in terms of positive ecological impact. Next. Yevhen, I would like to ask you if it is okay. 2 minutes, 2 minutes. Okay, great. So another slide then. Right. So last year, together with our guest expert Brian Milakovsky, we prepared a report on the role of wood construction in Ukraine's recovery. You can download it on our website, and we posit that when we are talking about sustainability, well, we are now at the emergency reconstruction stage, but as soon as our reconstruction is sustainable, the donors and investors both are going to pay attention to the origin of our materials, to their certification, and they will be very eco-minded in such projects. So, and we must take this into account. And this is where you can find the certification data. You can find the FSC certificate holders, including the result company mentioned by Mr. Bidakov. And this is a quote from WWF. This is an organization which takes care of wildlife in the world, and they say that FSC is the forest certification scheme that best fulfills WWF's requirements. So they are using our FSC system as one that helps to promote the preservation of forests all over the world. And I guess I am done here with my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. Dear speakers, thank you very much for your brilliant presentations. It was very interesting and it was very focused. So now I think that we are ready for discussion, but before we start the discussion, we have an experimental questionnaire. We would like to ask your opinion about reconstruction and the use of timber in reconstruction. So now I'm going to show our questionnaire here on screen. So you can see now the first question, and I'm going to ask my co-panelists. Can you see it on screen? Please take part then. So we have around 2 minutes, so please do not think, don't overthink it. I can see that the first answers are actually coming already. Well, let's say 3 minutes, and then I will show you the results. So the first question is, what are the biggest challenges of building in Ukraine from timber? What is the biggest hindrance? And the second question is, what should we build of timber? What exact typology? Should this be just housing for nuclear families, or should they be multi-story buildings, 2-3-story cottages? This is what is now allowed by our current construction regulations, or should it be some housing up to 6 floors? Should these be public buildings or educational establishments like kindergartens and schools? So, a couple of more minutes. I can see we get more answers. And let's wait till we get around 15 responses. I am really very curious what kind of feedback we get from our today's audience. So about the hindrances and the potential. I see that the figures stay more or less the same. Let's wait for a couple of more seconds. And let me show the results on screen. This is the first time we are using this instrument in our Rosquit lecture series. Today we have 45 guests. It's a big audience. So I think our feedback will be very interesting. So I would like to share the results now. Dear panelists, can you see the results of our questionnaire on screen? Well, the results, I can see them as percentages. Zoom instrument doesn't make a pie chart, so I will read the results. So 97% believe that legislation is the biggest hindrance, building regulations, fire regulations. Then 27% say higher price compared to other materials. Only 6% believe that Ukraine doesn't have enough forests. I guess it will be interesting for Mr. Yevhen. This opinion, 33% believe that there are not enough certified timber building materials in Ukraine. Then no one chose safety as a hindrance. I think this is very good. Then, public perception, no one is building serious buildings from wood, 55%. So this means that public opinion is not in favor of timber construction. Okay. Next, lack of specialists, architects, designers, and builders. These factors mentioned by 33% of our guests. And the second question. So, which typologies make more sense to build with wood? 83% actually vote for single-family houses, 74% vote for multifamily, 2-3 story for 3-4 families. Public buildings are mentioned by 83%, and schools, kindergartens are mentioned by 78% of our guests. Thank you very much for these results. And I think that we are ready for discussion. We have 5 questions in our chart already. And I will be reading the questions in Ukrainian. So the first question is to Mr. Andriy, very technical. So, why is glulam cheaper than CLT panels? Glulam and well, actually, pricing policy is set by the manufacturer, and the same situation we have abroad. CLT panels are slightly more costly than glulam products. Maybe it's because of the more complexity, more manufacturing complexity, and this adds the price. Yeah, CLT panels are more costly. But in general, I can say glulam products and CLT panels produced in Ukraine are cheaper than those manufactured abroad. So once again, today the price is around 1,000 euros per cubic meter for CLT panels abroad. In Ukraine, the price is lower. But when we when you import products from abroad, you will have also to pay customs clearance fees. So, but in terms of quality, I'm happy to say that our products either of the same quality as international products and or actually even higher, especially in conifer kinds of products.
The
next question is in English, so Lilith, maybe you will read it.
Yeah, I'm going to add one to it because I'm now getting very curious. Dojana, it's to you where the wood is coming from that you use in your buildings. Is that always from the same country, or does it differ? Or
No, it could easily differ. At the moment, the two buildings that we've realized have both gotten their wood from Austria. And in the case of the Hout residential tower, the first one with the hybrid floor elements, that wood went first to Germany, was there then in a factory combined into the floor panels, and then it was taken to the Netherlands. But it would also be, I think in the Netherlands, there are timber buildings with wood, sometimes from Scandinavia. Of course, it's the transport we don't have much forest in our country, actually. We have a lot of farmland. So it depends a bit on the transport, by boat, often by train or by road.
yeah, and that all is also, of course, part of this whole calculations of footprint and things like that. Ukraine, on the other hand, is so big that in getting the wood from one part of the country to the other already is like two
Yeah,
times
yeah.
the rest of
I was
Europe.
in Canada, and that's the same, of course, in Canada. To get it from one side of Canada to the other is about as the same as getting it from Europe to Toronto. But
Yeah.
but at the same time, I think for Ukraine, it's a great advantage that you have so much timber in your own country that you wouldn't have to import it. And of course, even better if it can remain in a certain part of the country. So also in the Netherlands, we've been championing all the time production companies to start their own factories, creating the actual building components, because there needs to be a bigger chain, so that it doesn't all from the forest have to funnel to one or two factories to create building components.
Thanks. I don't know if that's to you or to André. It's about the durability of the wood, but that the wood is very often glued wood. And what about the durability of the glue? So the lasting time of the buildings.
I can answer first, and maybe André can answer after. From what I know, of course, timber in itself is a super, super durable product. Half of the inner city of Amsterdam is built on timber foundations, even, and is timber buildings. They've lasted for centuries. So essentially, timber is a very durable product. And the glue that's used is tested, of course, for aging, and it's tested to last also again for centuries. It's still a bit more tricky, we find, to get warranties past 50 years, and that's been an issue in the Hout building. So I think the actual written down warranty time is less, because it's not used as a mass timber or glue timber element for such a long time. On the other hand, again, once installed in place, the actual timber component doesn't actually change anymore.
You want to add, André, or is that sufficiently?
Я завжди при такому питанні студентам навожу
When
приклад.
people ask me this question, I use the following example. I use the photo of a timber bridge of Kapellebrücke, which was built in 1333. You can actually visit it and see how wood operates, how it lasts for 700 years, being a bridge on the water. Unfortunately, we don't have such examples in Ukraine, but yeah, Switzerland can provide us a case. And so the longevity of timber relies upon maintenance. And also, I would like to ask the question, to tweak a question a bit. I think it was the question about the CLT and glulam. Actually, it lasts even better because the timber products, modern timber products, due to the development of the chemical industry, allows us to create products, timber products, which are much more durable. And so this allows us to make the beams thinner and the cross sections smaller. And so there is the sky's the limit. And also, Natasha asked the question, silty and glulam are new materials, so it's not possible to assess their durability because there are not many. We cannot have old buildings built of glulam, right? Sure, because the first attempts were to glue timber to make some kind of new materials out of it started around 100 years ago. So 100 years is quite a lot of time. So I thought that these materials are much younger. So, and one more example from Mr. Yuri, whether you calculate the transportation, the harvesting, and other processes or when manufacturing timber products in terms of calculating the carbon footprint. So I think I should start and then my colleagues will continue. So when we're talking about harvesting, timber harvesting, it's clear that one tree that we cut will provide space for new trees to grow. And so clearly the younger trees deposit maybe fewer carbon than older trees. But don't be very technical about it, because the growing the forestry in itself is a very complex kind of industry. So because we are preserving like primary forests, right? Because in primary forests, you cannot harvest anything because these are the patches we must keep as natural reserves. So we promote balanced approach. And when the approach is balanced, it promotes the binding of more carbon, and then this reduces the carbon footprint. I know that there are initiatives related to project certification which take this into account and which calculate this very precisely, but maybe my colleagues have more information on that. And in one of the projects I have shown you, the architects conducted such kinds of calculations and shared them with the community.
Yeah, I can at least say that in the projects that we do, when we calculate carbon, which in the Netherlands we now need to do to get a building permit as well, then transport is one of the things for all building components that is factored in to that carbon footprint.
Дякую. Будемо переходити до наступного.
Thank you very much. So we will continue with the next question. So the low price of Ukraine manufactured CLT our low price can be higher than the international price. So is this a comment? Yes, it must be a comment about the pricing policies of our national manufacturers. But I think Andriy has already explained that, well, actually, we need it is explained by the taxation system. It is more profitable to export our CLT than to actually build of it in Ukraine. And Natalia says that maybe our government should do something about it so that we have our native materials to be used in native construction. So Natalia continues with the next question. How do we calculate carbon footprint? Do we calculate the carbon footprint after the tree is cut? Evgen says that FSC certification uses balance approach, and the area which was harvested must be planted again, and so here we are depositing additional carbon, and so in this process. And a technical issue, a technical question, which will be the longest beam that is possible in the longest beam which is acceptable in Ukrainian construction according to the normatives. The manufacturer mentioned result manufactures the maximum length of 12-13 meters, but when we need more, then it can be done using bolts, using other sorts of connectors. It all depends upon the design that we need. Thank you. Two more questions. I think we have already covered them partially. So, but are there any scientific is there any scientific research which investigates the seams in glulam after 10 years of operation? And also, how do glulam timber products, how do they work in time? Andriy says that there are a lot of research, both international and national, and our international partners are very honest about this research. They approach it very objectively, and they are testing all sorts of parameters, durability, structural integrity, etc. As for seams, I think glulam panels do not have this problem. My colleagues from Germany dealing with reducing the weight of CLT panels, and so they are reducing their density. This doesn't reduce their bearing capacity, but it reduces the weight, and sometimes they include some sort of sound insulation material because acoustics is an important construction parameter. So I hope that you have responded to this series of questions. Another question to Mr. Andriy. So, in your opinion, which is the priority for timber construction in Ukraine? Modular construction or structural construction? So I would say that presently all sorts of construction are developing very actively in Ukraine. We have a lot of companies who come for us for consultations. And so modular construction, as far as I know, there are two very powerful manufacturers in Kiev, in Poltava, and they are improving their quality practically every day. And as for bearing structures, then I think our Dutch colleagues today have presented wonderfully, and in terms of comparison with reinforced concrete, and you see from our presentations today is that you can have very long spans using timber products, and it is very efficient in terms of also using timber-based materials in construction. We have to use glulam products, but if not, then we will take, in other cases, we are taking where we can CLT panels. And another question, rather a comment about durability of timber. People say that we have like 300-year-old timber constructions in Ukraine, in Drohobych, for instance. And another question is, what about chemical finishing of timber products for fire safety? How ecological is it? And do we have specific certification for chemical processing? Can we keep the CLT panels as they are when they are chemically processed? How dangerous are they for the residents? This is the question, I guess.
Можливо, до Яни
Maybe,
могла б
до Janne,
голландські вимоги до
can you please
the chemical glue and whether that's dangerous for the users of the building?
For the residents, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it's better actually for Andre maybe, but I know that there's been a whole discussion and change on the different types of glue. So either and I think at the again, it's been tested all over, and the glue is no other than used in various other products. So we have that type of material around us a lot. Coming back also to the fact that it's glued on the DPG building, they are measuring the gaps that sometimes come into the wood, but they never exceed the millimeters that is allowed. But as far as I know, I'm trying to use the terms in English for the two different types of glues. One is, I think, polymer based, and one is well, a different type. Yeah, and again, as far as we know, it's tested and used. They are normal products that we have around us.
Дякую, Діана. Мені здається, що це питання було саме про
Thank you very much, Diana, because I think it was about the fire safety chemicals, which are the coating for such panels.
Yeah, but
so
the panels that we use are not coated for fire safety. They're coated to glue them together. And that is both true for columns, beams, and floor panels. So glulam, CLT are both the same. The fire resistance comes from the size of the timber itself. And if that, as Andre showed really good pictures of, the charring helps to keep the element upright, and also to make sure the flames actually stop. Once it's charred, it doesn't burn further into the wood. So for fire safety, there's no coating used. There are some locations where we need to clad a timber element into with a metal stud kind of additional wool or element. That's sometimes used as an extra protection, even though the charring helps and the wood does its own. It's either for the high-rise buildings, so above 70 meters, that we need that extra in some places. Also, with a hout timber building, we couldn't have the two timber elements perpendicular because sometimes if the fire can keep on jumping from one element to another, then the charring doesn't provide as much protection. So it's actually engineering wise and calculation wise is not it's definitely important to take very good care, right? It's not that timber is always in any situation for a tall building, for instance, good enough to keep it upright for 2 hours for the 120 minutes that you need. But with a careful detailing and with a careful engineering and additional methods, sometimes it can stay upright for as long or longer than concrete or steel. And I think André showed that very well in his presentation. But the coating doesn't actually help or is not needed for this fire protection.
Дякую, Даяна. Можливо, я
Thank you very much,
ускладнила
Diana.
питання.
Maybe I made the question more complicated than intended,
Так,
but
у нас уже закінчився, власне, ми
thank you very
передали
much.
10 хвилин
Actually,
вперед.
we are 10
Залишається два
minutes
питання, і
behind
одне
our
з них
schedule. There are two
новин таке
questions
складне.
to discuss. One of them is rather complex about the seismic regulations applied to timber structures. Maybe our speakers can answer this question if you know what.
One very brief answer and then maybe technically onto some others. Both in North America and also in the north of the Netherlands, timber is actually used as a method to build in seismic conditions. So it's actually better than steel or concrete in many cases. So it's a solution rather than an extra complication. But maybe one of the other speakers can say more on that.
Так,
Е,
Андрій?
Да, все вірно, деревина має гарні
Absolutely, I agree with that. Timber is a very efficient material in terms of seismic activity, and my experience shows that two-story buildings are very stable when they're built of timber. When we're talking about hybrid timber structures, I think the person who asked this question about hybrid timber structures and their seismic properties in specific regions, I think that, of course, it requires specific technical solutions. But the new version of European Code for timber constructions, I know this, I'm an insider. I represent Ukraine in this committee who outlines these regulations. I think we are going to give the opportunity to designers to use the combination of various materials to ensure that their solutions are viable. So the final version of European normative documents are going to specify this, including seismically active areas. Thank you very much for this question and your answers. And the last question today. So if half of the buildings in Ukraine are going to be made of timber, will we have enough forests to grow this? Oh, this is rather optimistic, I would say, because if we find the technologies which will enable us to build of timber, everything of timber, really, it would be really good, in my opinion. But this is underpinned by the fact that timber is a renewable resource. And if we are not just paying attention to the price and technical features, we need to pay attention to the origin of our timber, and we must prevent deforestation. But if we pay attention only to price and we do not care about origin, yes, we may face extreme deforestation. Also, please remember about the cascade principle which I presented. Of course, a lot of timber is exported, and the companies who import our timber calculate the carbon footprint, and they need responsible suppliers. So national market is a bit more complicated. Unfortunately, national market for timber relies upon the price as its basic criterion. And so, yes, yes, the question is complex, but in all sorts of certification, be it FSC certification, or actually keep in mind that we need to leave something to our descendants, we can build more of timber, but we must do it responsibly. Thank you very much. So, dear lecturers, dear guests, we have just one question to answer. If, dear experts, you can answer it quickly, then you will be welcome. So, what financial instruments or investment mechanisms can promote timber construction in Ukraine? What do you say? I have a comment here. It's a very good question. And actually, we try to answer it in the report I mentioned in my presentation. Actually, the question I think is also concerning decarbonization of the whole area. We must take into account that we are aligning with the European Union, and we must align with its regulations, and we must adopt the taxonomy of EU, meaning that the supplier the supplier and the client must both do due diligence procedures to make sure that the timber has originated in the right way. Thank you very much. We have no questions in the chat left without answers. So, dear speakers, thank you very much for your presentations. Dear audience, thank you very much for your attention, for your questions and comments. We must finish our today's event. I think it was very interesting. Thank you very much, everyone.
Дякую, до побачення.
Thank you very much.